And when we have these sessions, we like to take an opportunity to share a little bit about our work to ensure that all of the applicants who are writing for these grants have a little bit of an understanding of what it is that we do, and the bigger picture beyond the grants. The funds that we're granting come from generous donors who have invested primarily in endowments. And so it's really important to understand the story of that generosity and how that partnership is helping to provide support to organizations like yourself in the community. So we've just got our mission there. I know many of you are familiar with our work. And we'll just pop over briefly the next slide, please. And so some of you will have heard us use the term charity for charities. And so really what we're looking at is providing reliable, enduring, and sustainable financial tools for the community to be able to support the causes that are most important to them. And some of the things that we're really focused on in our application process are the values. So you can see them there, and they're also in the portal. So diversity, collaboration, trust, growth, accountability, and integrity. Next slide, please, Romy. So we have a lot of news. And I'll just give you a few highlights tonight. We have recently released our year in review report for 2022. So if you haven't seen that yet, we invite you to find that on the website and have a look. And you might see your work reflected, hopefully, in the report. And we do have opportunities to come together. If you've not been connected with us in the past, our next not-for-profit meeting by Zoom is on April the 13th. And we do have an e-blast list, which may be how you came to join us this evening. We encourage you to make sure that all of the right people are receiving that information. We are sometimes hearing from organizations that not everyone is receiving the emails. So if you need to add someone or take someone off, feel free to just reach out to Lynn at the office. She's the info at SurreyCares address, and we'll assist you with that. And why that e-blast list is really important is, in addition to our grants, we're often providing information about special initiatives that may be of value to you. And so we just want to make sure that we're getting all of that information out to you. Something else that's new this year is that we, based on some changes with the Canada Revenue Agency, are able to include applications from organizations incorporated under the Societies Act. And that's new for us. In the past, you needed to be a registered charity. You can now be a not-for-profit society. So we hope that'll really help the community. A couple of things that we, will talk about, and I just want to give a big shout out again to Lynn and Romy, who have been working very hard on opening the new grant portal this year, and they're going to talk about that later on this evening. We're hoping that that will make life easier because you'll be able to log in and find your application rather than having to search for an email or a download. And we hope it will really reduce the number of lost documents, things like evaluation reports that sometimes people feel they've submitted and they don't seem to ever get where they're going. So now there will be an easier process for that. This year, despite the economic challenges. And as you know, the challenges in the markets, SurreyCares has done better than many segments of the market. And we are able to make grants this year that are still consistent with the past years. Last year, because the markets were so highly performing, we were able to make special distributions. So this year, the amount that we're able to grant is a little bit less, but we're still granting a total of almost $628,000. And about 53,000 of that is in the community grant stream that you're applying for and learning about this evening. So what we want to just reassure everyone is that even when there is a market downturn, the foundation makes sure that it has an income wedge so that there will not be years where there are no grants possible. And so when you wonder where the rest of those grants are going, about $574,000 is going to designated funds. And those are funds held by, I think the only organization online tonight is Unity, is a charity that has its own fund. And so if you want to learn more about that, please reach out to us about that. And I think that is really it. We've had an increasing volume of available grants year over year. So scholarships and bursaries, for example, have doubled over the past couple of years. And we're seeing more grants that are coming where, because we're creating new funds partway through the year, we're able to make extra grants. So sometimes, and some of you may have experienced this, we may have needed to send a decline letter because we've been oversubscribed. And then we're able to circle back and say, hey, we've got some funding that's come in and we're going through our applications that didn't get funded. So it's quite an exciting time for us. And as I think some of you will know, we are currently reviewing community services recovery fund grants of $2.28 million. And we also recently announced some Communities for Gender Equality grants. And I know we've got Anita online who was one of the recipients of those. So to move on to thinking about your grant applications, whether it's with SurreyCares or elsewhere, certainly many of you have heard us talking about a real focus on equity. And so what we're looking for is applications that are really trying to provide support for individuals in the community who need that extra boost. And we just find this is a really useful way of showing that information. Romy, you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So some of the things that we invite you to consider as you're writing your application are the reviewers. And so, as Debbie has noted, we have quite a range of reviewers who are coming with deep knowledge of the community. They may not be experts in your particular service area. So when you write your applications, we're really encouraging you to look at clarity of what you're writing and knowing that individuals, we don't want them to have to read between the lines and make assumptions. We want the information to be very clear so that they can understand it. So if in doubt, avoiding jargon, those kinds of things. Of course, fit with the values and with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we use the term nothing about us without us. Because of our limited funding, we find this is one of the areas where some of the applications are falling off of the list. So if you're not able to say that you're involving the stakeholders, and that they're actually leading the project, and that your organization is led by those affected, that likely will move you off the list unless there's a really unusual rationale for why that wouldn't be possible. And I'm just seeing a question pop into the chat there. We'll come back to that, Susan. We are looking to fill gaps in communities, so underserved populations and sectors. So the reviewers will be looking at the particular target areas. They review all of the applications and then also look for gaps. And so sometimes, and we will give you feedback if your application is not successful, you're welcome to reach out and we'll give you some information. Quite often it's simply that we had a lot of really excellent applications and just not enough dollars. If there is something though that we saw that caused you to be a little bit lower in the rankings, then we'll be happy to give you that feedback after the review process is completed. The reviewers will be looking for demonstrated needs. We have individuals on the review panels that have financial backgrounds, and we know they'll go straight to the budgets and to your financial statements. So they will be looking at need. Because we are so significantly oversubscribed often, we do ask that you only apply for what you need, and please don't pad the applications. They will see through that right away. So ensure that you're being realistic in your asks. Next slide, please. So a couple of things, that I'll just share. I don't know if any of you have been grant reviewers yourselves, but one of the first things that our reviewers say is, wow, we thought this was going to be really fun. It's rewarding, but it's hard work because we have to say no. So again, really carefully crafting your application to fit with our values, highlighting the leadership by those most affected by the project. That is one of our priorities for the community. Last year, we were able to add project staffing, equipment, infrastructure, and capacity building in the applications, and that was new. I've also already mentioned that we're able to accept NPOs this year. And for individuals, we're trying to reduce the barriers. So if an organization would prefer to present by video or have a site visit, we can arrange that. Please reach out and talk to Lynn early on if that's the case, so that we can schedule that, because we still need to have information ready for the review committee. And there are a couple of grant streams that are new this year or were just being created last year, so they weren't officially embedded in our grant review process. We do have a fund called the Surrey Miners Softball Initiative, and that does require grants to come in. The Summer Francis Financial Group Endowment Fund is also making grants that are focused on children and youth, primarily school systems. I don't think we've got any schools online this evening, and post-secondary institutions. So it's to help with educational support, primarily for individuals with disabilities. And the Food for Everyone Fund that we started last year. So that's where any food-related applications will be considered. If you are focusing on something that would be considered a big social need, we really encourage you to have partners and to highlight those partnerships in your grant application. In terms of being sustainable, as many of you will know, we can't continue to support the same application year over year. So if you've asked for the same project more than twice, you'll be unlikely to be considered for that. That doesn't mean that you can't apply for a project as an organization, but it should be a different project. Next slide, please. So our priorities for 2023 remain the same as they were for 2022. We're focusing on mental health, and we define that broadly. So that can be health promotion, it may be food, many things can be attributed to supporting positive mental health in the community. So we leave that to you to make the case. We also are prioritizing capacity development for local not-for-profits and grants that provide benefit to underserved populations in Surrey. Next slide, please. So the timelines, I have to say the team has been working probably around the clock to get the grant portal open next week. And the portal closes at noon on Friday, April 29th. We encourage you not to wait till the last minute to submit your applications for many reasons, but also because that tends to bog down portals. So sometimes there will be more challenges if you're trying to push something through at the last moment. And of course, extra time in getting the information in means a stronger application. So, we encourage you to try to take time to work on this in advance. The applications will go to the board on June the 20th, and notification of the grant status will, we hope, be out by June the 30th. So we'll try to turn that around as quickly as possible for you. Romy, next slide, please. So a few tips and tools. I know many of you have written a lot of grants already, and so we just like to share a few of the tips that we think are very helpful. As I've said, writing and presenting with the reviewer in mind probably goes without saying, but following the directions and not underestimating the time that it takes to craft a strong proposal. This is a very competitive process just because our dollars are limited and there's so much need in the community. So anything that you can do to include stories and numbers so that you can really get the point across in terms of the need and your strengths. So that's really important. And if you can really create that powerful story, that will bode well for your applications. I always like to say, if you can get someone else to review your application for you or work with a team, make sure that everything is included. It's the who, what, when, where, why, and how, but in a very concise and succinct way, will really help to fill in the gaps. And I will provide you with a resource that I found from Imagine Canada. It actually has a little bit of an example kind of scratch sheet that you can use with little boxes to fill in the key parts of your application prior to crafting the language so that you've got all of the elements. So we'll provide you with a link to that. With regards to your budget, it's really helpful if you can prioritize your budget. If we can't make a full grant to you based on what you asked for, the reviewers will, if they can see where the priority is in terms of what you've asked for, they will often make a partial grant. Once the application has reached the table, there's not going to be time to ask questions. So it needs to be really clear and needs to give us the tools to make the decisions right then and there. You may want to look at some of the examples of grants that have been successful in terms of the grant stories that are available on our website. That might give you a good feel of some of the things that have been funded in the past. And I know it may sound, you may wonder why I say this, but we look at a lot of applications. Please take time to proofread and have someone else proofread. The more fresh eyes you can get on your application before it comes in, the better your chance of success, because you've been more clear in the messaging. So don't use the jargon, and don't assume that they're going to understand why you feel this is the appropriate solution to the issue that you see at hand. So just to really, again, emphasize that importance. Our team is available to give feedback if you start early. The closer you get to the deadline, the less likely it is that they're going to have time to give you a lot of help and support. But if you can take time to reach out, if you're not sure if these are the appropriate grants for you to apply for, or if you've got questions about the likelihood of the application being successful, then please, doing that early is really helpful. Romy, next slide. This is the additional resource that I was speaking about. And so I think you may find this to be helpful to look at if you haven't seen it before. And this one does have that worksheet that you can download. And I think it could really help you crystallize the application concept that you're thinking about. The other thing I'm going to say is, don't give up if you're not successful. Again, it's often just that there were a lot of really strong applications on the table. And I know sometimes, there's a sense that maybe that was something personal. But we do try to, consider applications, consider what organizations have been funded in the past, and include new organizations. And at the end of the day, it's really looking at the strength of the organizations based on their match with the criteria. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn and Romy, who are going to explain how the new portal works. We hope you'll be excited by this. One of the things that we will ask is that before you start completing your application, that you work on your notes and maybe a Word document in advance. We will pay by the number of times you go into the portal. So within 24 hours, it's considered one visit. But if you're making multiple small visits, then that actually increases our costs on the portal. So just if you can avoid unnecessary trips into the portal, we'd really appreciate that. But as I said, this will make it easier for you to edit your application. You won't need to print the material or download. I know we've had a lot of requests in the past for people who can't find their applications and we're needing to send documents out. So we hope that this will make life much easier for you, as well as for us and the reviewers. Romy and Lynn, I'll turn it over to you. And there was a question, if one of you can answer, about the word count.
There is currently no limit on word count, but I would encourage you, reflecting back on Christine's comments, less is more. If reviewers go through pages and pages of information, what you don't want is for the reviewers to get lost in your application and forget what the question is that's being addressed. So yes, less is more. There is no huge limit on, on a word count. So Romy, if you can bring the next screens up, please, and I'll leave that for you to talk to our guests through, please.
Sure, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows that we will send out a separate email with the resources, but right now I did post the current link on the screen in the chat if you want to copy it. And moving on, so the process is a bit similar to START as it was last year. So you would have to go to the SurreyCares website. You would have to go to our grants portal. You just need to hover over grants and it would show you a list. And in there would be a portal named 2023 grant application. And when you visit that portal, you would be redirected to a page. And at the bottom of the page, we would post two links. One would be for the grant application themselves. And another one would be for a copy of the PDF, which includes all the questions that are going to be in the portal themselves. We just want to make sure that you have that information beforehand when you visit the portal so that you don't need to revisit it again and again. You can prepare that beforehand. And going to the next page, this is what you would expect from the portal. So it would ask you to create a login account. After you have, it would be similar to what you usually do in any other website that requires login. And once you have created the account, it would take you to a similar page that you were in before. And in here, the home page would be the one that you're seeing here, and the grant request page would be the one that is right over here. Here you would have, you would only be able to see the application that you have submitted, but from our end, we would be able to see all the application at once. And here you would get to fill out your application. As you can see, there is a button that would say new grant application. And once you go in there, you would find the similar type of questions you might already already know about. If you applied for grants in previous years, you would start by filling out information of your organization. And like we commented earlier, this year we are not just taking charitable registration number, we would also be taking the incorporated societies number for anybody that is registered under the Society Act. And after you go there, you can fill out the information of the person that is going to be that we can contact for any questions for the application. And then it would be more about the project that you are uploading for. As mentioned earlier, if you have received grants for a particular object multiple times, you might not be able to get a grant. You might not be able to get a grant this time for it. So if you have another project, you can describe that in here. And so there are different costs for each grant. General, community, and youth, the maximum amount you can get is 5,000, but for special vocational rehabilitation, it's going to be 10,000. And after you are done, if you have any partnerships, you would need to fill out that form here separately and provide any proof for that partnership. In this portal, you would only be able to submit one document that should be a PDF, and it should be concurrent to any proof of partnership with a different organization.
Romy, could I just quickly jump in here?
Sure.
Oftentimes, what we see in our applicants or in the applications is people will say, no, this is not a partnership. This is our grant. And then subsequently further down in the application, we will see at least half a dozen organizations that you're working with. So please include, like, say, yes, this is a partnership. Tell us about the organizations that you're working with. It doesn't need to be a legal document or a legal relationship between you and other parties. So receiving referrals, for example, from the school district, implicit is that the school district and your organization are working together. It can be just that simple. And our reviewers do look for that kind of relationship in the community. Sorry, Romy, go ahead.
Sure. And after you have filled in the information about the project, excuse me, and then you would go towards the document checklist, and here you should be able to upload at least four files, and the limit for those files is you can either upload Word, PDF, or Excel document, but we do consider that you upload one document as a PDF and all the information in just one document. That really helps our reviewers as well to, not keep track of different documents at one time. However, if you are unable to, the option is available there. And after that, all you need to do is click on the terms and services and then submit, and it would take you to the home page where you'll be able to see that your application would be submitted to us. And once again, only you would be able to see your own application. You can revisit and edit your application if you need to. However, once you're done, we would be able to, we would close the portal on April 28th, the last Friday of the month, and possibly we would have the application portal open by Tuesday of the next week. And from here on, I would turn the torch towards Lynn to fill in any gaps that I may have missed.
So if we can have a quick conversation about your budgets. It's really important that and this may sound silly, but it's really important that your budget actually adds up, revenue and expenses. We do want to see, so for example, a $200,000 project, our $5,000 grant is going to have an impact on that project. And we would like to see in your budget what our impact is, which is why we like to know what both numbers are. If funded, you will be asked to submit an evaluation report. And on that evaluation report, we would request that you identify how SurreyCares funds are spent. And please do ensure that you're only asking for funding for what SurreyCares does pay for. So new buildings, major capital, that wouldn't be a project that we would fund. Another good item for you to do in your budgets is when you're prioritizing your budget, you're showing what's really important to you. But in addition to that, if you were contributing your own resources, we do need to see, it would be helpful. We don't need to see it, but your budget is going to look a lot better if you're showing that you're putting your own resources into the budget. Next slide, please, Romy. Please ask for help early in the process. If I have any questions about your budgets, about content, about documentation, I can't get back to you quickly enough and get things organized in the portal if it's all done on the last minute. So really help yourself out by asking questions. I don't mind how many questions, how many phone calls, how many emails. I'd rather help you before you do the submission and it gets to the reviewers. Use plain language, keep the language simple, and again, less is more, especially if the language is easy to understand. Clearly show the number of Surrey residents that will benefit from the project. So here's an example. So in your impact statements, or where you're talking about Surrey residents and the benefits of your application, 20 Surrey residents will receive 50 meals a month at a cost of whatever. That impact statement is helpful for the reviewers. It gives them a very quick snapshot of what is happening and where the funds are going. But it also helps us after the fact to amplify the success of your organization. And yes, ask for feedback. Post-grant process, I had the pleasure of responding to over 10 applicants last year who were unsuccessful, but spent a lot of time with them after the fact, reviewing where they could have I guess scored more points. And all of those applicants were very thankful for the feedback and have gone on to improve their applications with other organizations. So always willing to help. Next slide, please, Romy. Okay, discussions and questions. So Christine, I'll hand it back over to you there for a minute.
We have a question in the chat, and I think this is probably for Romy. Romy, how will the applicants print their file after they've submitted it?
So you can't exactly print the application from the portal, but after you have filled out all your details for the application, you can just hit Control and P on your screen, and it would print out the entirety of the document that you have filled out before submitting it. After you have submitted it, you would only be able to see the application that has been submitted. You can revisit the application to edit it, but you can't print it. The only way would be to hit Control and P while the application window is open in your browser.
Okay, great question, Wayne. Any other questions?
Well, it's not a question, but I really appreciated your explanation of partnership. I've never said we are in partnership with anybody because we don't have legal documents. We don't have letters of agreement. But when you talk about referrals, well, yeah, of course, we have referrals from all over the place. So that's a very different situation. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Things like referrals to your organization coming from outside your organization speaks highly of how the community values your service, right?
Well, I don't think any of us could exist without referrals.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what kind of organization you have, but those aren't partnerships.
No. But you aren't working alone, Susan.
No, absolutely
that's
not.
the whole point. You're not working in a little
No, never.
silo by yourself. And I don't think any of the organizations work in a silo.
No.
But some organizations do have very formal partnerships,
Yes.
as you alluded to. So yes, please tell us about those too.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have a note here from Sadie. So there is an end of November reporting timeline. Yes, we do ask that you finish your projects by November. Now, if there's something that comes up that is really key, I know during COVID, we had a number of projects that needed to ask for extensions. So if there is an important reason, please reach out and talk to Lynn and let her know what's going on, and we can talk that through with you.
Shanti, you have your hand up?
I do, thank you. So do you accept just general letters of support from the community as well? Sort of at the partnership question?
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay. So we can put it in that section then. I'm trying to remember all the pages of the application.
Put it in the partnership
Partnership
section.
area. Okay.
So, but make sure that it's key. Don't try to pad the application with a whole bunch of stuff that the reviewers need to look at. But if there is a letter of support that is really important and helps to underscore the work that you're doing or the fact that you're partnering with others, then maybe choose one and put it in that upload that Romy talked about. If you can put your documents together, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, please don't issue a campaign where you're wanting, 250 letters of support. Not a requirement here on this grant application, okay? Be reasonable. Thank you. Do we have anything else in the chat, Christine?
No, I think that is it. So, as we mentioned, we do have our e-blasts that come out as we hear of things. We'll pass those along. The City of Surrey also has grants, and you can visit the city's website to see what's available. And as much as possible, we're really happy to provide non-financial resources and support wherever we can. So if you need anything, please keep in touch and reach out to us, and we'll do our best to connect you with others. Our not-for-profit meetings, like the one that's coming up on the 13th, are great opportunities to share with one another, and we'll often have organizations who say, hey, does somebody know anything about this, or can you help with that? And it has a wonderful spirit of collaboration to that group. So we encourage you to be connected with the other not-for-profits. And if you can be on those virtual presentations, both to receive and to share, that's really valuable.